So when we're looking at forces, we need to have a think about what's actually happening. And it's about looking for clues as to which forces are acting on what forces, if there are any forces acting. And so here I have the skateboard, and you might think because it's not moving that there are no forces, but there are. Obviously, there's a force of its weight downwards, which is force due to gravity, because it has a mass. And then from the platforms, they're equal and opposite forces coming up from the wheels. And we know those forces are balanced because there isn't a change in motion upwards or downwards. If it became very, very heavy, it would break the supports and fall through, and we go, oh, the force has no longer been balanced from the force coming upwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exert a force on the skateboard in order to make it go in this direction, in order to change of motion and acceleration in this direction. So I'm going to use a sponge for this, because if I use a sponge, we can see very clearly this is a contact force, and we'll be able to see when there's a force being exerted on the board. Now, obviously, I'm stopping it with my finger, so these forces are balanced at the moment. But when I let go, we can see that the contact force here acts for a short period of time, but now there is no longer a force acting in the direction of travel. As soon as it stops making contact, that force doesn't exist anymore. There are no forces in this direction. However, the board has stopped. The question is why? Well, if we think about it, the board was moving in this direction, and so therefore, in order for it to stop, there has to be an unbalanced force in the opposite direction. Because we've already said that unless an external force acts on a body, its motion will not change. It continues with a constant velocity unless an external force acts upon it. So there must have been some kind of force which was slowing it down. And this is where we have to play detective and look at, well, what might happen, what might be happening. It could be air resistance, but it's moving incredibly slowly, so it's not likely to be air resistance. It could be the friction of the surface, and that's probably one of the main causes of it. We could test this by increasing the friction of the surface, putting sandpaper down, looking at how we might make it a higher frictional force. And the last one we could look at would be friction in the bearings. And we could test this again. We could get some lubricant, and we could actually test the bearings and see whether we can reduce the force that's actually slowing us down and then stopping the board from moving.